Today, basically, I'm your instructor for this webinar, and I'll be taking you through some basics of CakePHP, that is a MVC framework. So before that, I will explain you a bit. I will give you a bit of introduction of mine. Basically, I'm into web development. I've worked with many MNCs, and I'm having around 11 years of experience. And I'm also associated to Edureka, and I'm basically an instructor for Edureka. So today I'll be starting with we'll be taking basically the CakePHP, that is the MVC framework. So using CakePHP, we can build a RESTful web application. RESTful means basically a web application that builds APIs for using, you can say, clean URL. HTTP is the base. You can say on the top of HTTP, we basically build our applications, RESTful web applications using CakePHP. Now we will start with our session for today. So we'll be taking CakePHP, that is the MVC framework. So first of all, we'll see that what is MVC, how CakePHP is a successful MVC framework. Everybody able to see my screen? Okay. So these are some of the agendas that we'll be taking today. So first of all, we'll try to understand what is MVC architecture. MVC means M means model, V means view, and C means controller. Basically, when you work with any programming language, especially to PHP, because PHP is a web programming language. This means it is basically it's for web, it's for browser. So you can build your own portal, you can build your own application and access that through browser using HTTP or HTTPS. So if it is going to be used on browser, then definitely there is a mean or there is a method to make PHP interact with HTML. Right, and HTML is hypertext. It is basically static, used for static websites. Earlier, when PHP was not there, we were using HTML to build our websites, and those were static websites only. Only the information you could have displayed, but you were not able to do some interaction with the screen, provide some interactive information. No, you were not able to do that. But as PHP came into the market, and it interacted with HTML, then it gave us a power to interact with the web, or you can say that provide your own information, and in future you can access that if required. So the websites that we build today are basically dynamic websites. The interactive websites are basically called dynamic website. Dynamic is used because you can interact with your browser. Any page you can access, and if there is some interaction, like if there is a form, you can fill that form as per your requirement and you can submit the form. And later on that form, whatever information you have filled, you can retrieve that and see whatever you have filled. So all these kind of things you can do with web applications. And CakePHP, this was the basic core PHP that came to the market. And later on, what basically the PHP developers realized, that PHP can interact with HTML, and HTML and PHP can be written together. So you can write PHP code into HTML code, or vice versa. Also, PHP can interact with databases like MySQL, Oracle, SQL. A lot of databases are there with which PHP can interact. Now, when there was no framework and we were doing PHP coding, during that what we realized, that the code is kind of mixture. It has become a mixture, and in the same file we are writing PHP, in the same file we are writing HTML, and in the same file we are writing database queries. So that become a kind of hybrid mixture. So later on, basically the PHP developers realized that there should be some structure that should be followed, so that the code, there is some division between various type of codes. Like we can write HTML code separately, we can write PHP code separately, we can write database query separately, and we can make different classes for them, and later on we can make them interact with each other. Vikrant, can we please go with the slides first, then we'll take the queries, because that breaks you can say the continuity. So let's first go with the session, then we'll take all the questions. So then it was realized that there should be some structure, some framework that must be followed, and when we code using that structure, using that framework, it should be maintainable. If all the HTML, PHP, and queries are written in a single file, and you have to change something, it would be very difficult because you don't know changing a single word will make your file crash or make your results altered. So there came a framework that is MVC. MVC means Model View Controller. MVC is basically a design pattern where M means model. In model, we basically write queries, and then view. In view, we basically write HTML part, or you can say GUI part, graphical user interface part, with which user interacts. And then controller you can say it's the brain of application basically. Uh, it contains all the logic. So now if we access any page, the control first goes to the controller, and then controller decides from which model I have to interact with and which view I have to provide the output. So first we go to controller. Controller, if there is something to interact with the database, controller goes to the model, and then model returns the data from the database to the controller, and that data then goes to view, and that is displayed on the screen to the user. So you can see that, you can visualize that how the programming has structured now. Now HTML, PHP, and database queries are separated, and they are interacting with each other. So one of the framework that provides such kind of functionality, and that is very sophisticated, very good framework, that is CakePHP. Why to use CakePHP? That I've already told you, that it is basically MVC framework, so it provides categorization of various things, and we can easily maintain our application. And moreover, it also provides some inbuilt applications, inbuilt APIs. We can simply access that and do our job. We don't have to write our own. Lot of things, lot of coding we can avoid by using CakePHP. Then we'll see that how to configure CakePHP. Then creating a simple web application using CakePHP. So these would be the agendas for today. So what are the drawbacks of an application without a framework? So that are a lot of things I've already discussed, but I will go through. Coding in straight PHP can lead to spaghetti code, long lines of code that have multiple interactions, and so also typically have HTML code in it. So PHP can also be written into HTML, and HTML can also be written into PHP. So if this kind of thing is there, then there would be kind of hybrid mixture, that if you have to separate, for example, if I ask you to mix water and milk and then ask you to make them separate, it is impossible for you. So similarly, if HTML and PHP are written with each other, and if I have to change a single thing or remove a single thing, add a single thing, it would become very difficult for me. I will not be able to manage that code. So for that, a framework comes into the picture. Next is leads to disorganization, difficult to reuse the code. So I've already explained that how you basically, if you have written the core PHP code, if you have written some lines of code and you want to reuse that, it would become difficult. You have to rewrite the function for other application, or you have to rewrite all the statements in that function. So that way code duplication would be there, and reusability of existing code would be less. And change one thing, break another. So definitely, if code is like a hybrid mixture, and if you have to break it, if you have to change something, something might, it is 90% sure that something will break if code is written like that. Everything must be tested, which is difficult. So you have to, because there is no structure, if there is no framework, you have to test each and every file, each and every line of code, and if some error occurs, it would be difficult for you to resolve that, because you don't know resolving that error might bring some more errors in front of you. So it is a bit difficult. Hard code everything from scratch. So lot of the things you will have to hard code, because if no reusability is there, you have to hard code lot of things. And teamwork challenges. So parallel programming is called two people can work on a single screen or two people can work on a single module. That is parallel programming. But if you are using a single file or you are using your own core structure to implement application, in that case, no other programming would be able to interact with that file because you will be author of that. And if you even you don't know that if you change something, it can break, then how others can? If you have written the code and you yourself are not able to maintain it, how you can expect others to maintain it? So it would become difficult. So to avoid that thing, we basically use design patterns, and one such design pattern is MVC, that is Model View Controller. So MVC is acronym for Model View Controller. MVC is a software design pattern for developing web and desktop applications. It separates not only the web applications, not only the MVC framework used in PHP, it can be used with, there are a lot of frameworks with Java or C++, means MVC, the structure is same, the methodology is same, the only difference is the language syntax, that's it. Model view controller are maintained in the same way, either language, it is either Java or PHP or C++, whatever language it is. So MVC is basically a framework, it's a structure, it is not language dependent. So it separates the application logic in easily maintainable code, containers, model view, and controllers. The model container manages the data and business logic of the application. So model is basically for data interaction, business logic. So what kind of business logic? The logic that interacts with the database. The data that is fetched or that is saved to the database. Model receives a request for data access from view. See, I'm having a form. I have to build up a form. So where the form will be built? Where form would be built in the view. So in the view, I will write my HTML. And for example, I have designed a form in my view. When I interact with form, I fill information in my form and click on submit button. Now that data will first go to controller, and then controller will interact with the model, with the respective model where I have to save the data or we have to manipulate the data. Then that model will basically do the job of saving that into the database or fetching the data from the database. So it basically gets the data from the view. It also receives request controller. So if I have to update the data or you have to delete some record, so in that case it also interacts with the controller. Model encapsulates the database and file access from the rest of the application logic. So model will contain all the database and file interactions. You don't write anything, any query into the view or into the controller. Everything related to database or file handling is written in the model itself. So in this way, it is very easy to maintain. If you have to change something on the database sides, for example, some table structure is changed and you have to change your query according to that, you don't have to uh, access multiple files, or you don't have to change the code that is a hybrid code. You simply go to that model. See, in CakePHP, each table would be having a model. How many tables you built in the database, each table would be having a model, corresponding model in the PHP code. So if we have to change something in the model into any table, so the corresponding change will come to. So model is basically for database interaction. If you change something in your table, the corresponding change has to be done in that model only. You don't have to basically replicate change in multiple files. On a single place in the model related to that particular table, you will make the change and automatically it would be reflected everywhere. So this is the benefit of a view, of a model. Now we'll see view. View is basically a container, or you can say it contains the presentation of the data. Whatever is displayed on the browser to the user is basically coming from the view. Whether it is the style or its look and feel, whatever user is able to see, it is the part of view. Each model can have multiple views associated with it. So different views we will be using for various functionalities. For example, I'm having a screen, CRUD operation if you are aware of, create, update, delete. So in that case, what we do, create, retrieve, update and delete, CRUD operation. Create, you create new records, retrieve, you retrieve the existing data, update, you update the existing data, and delete, you delete any record. So this is called CRUD operations. So if you are going to build any CRUD operation, CRUD screen, so in that case, you will be having different views for listing. See, four things would be there. Basically, three things would be there. You'll be having a listing. In that listing, you will be able to edit every record, or you will be able to add a new record, or you will be able to delete any existing record. So in that case, all these functionalities would be having a separate view. We'll be creating a separate view for all these functionalities. View handles all the user interface, elements, forms, tables, and for metadata. So whatever data we get from the form, or whatever data we get from database tables, we basically format that and display that on the view itself. Vue also implements templates to unify the overall look and feel of the website. So we can build our header, we can build our footer, we can build our left menu, right menu, and that can be used inside the Vue to display your information. So Vue is basically, you can say, the look and feel of your website. For example, if there is a person standing in front of me, his face is Vue, his brain is my controller, and whatever task he performs internally is the model. So from where the information, your mind, brain is fetching the information, that is model. So model is the database, view is your face, and controller is your brain who creates all the logics. Okay. So now the controller. So controller container manages all the communication between model and view. So controller is kind of brain. See, in your body, there is a repository where your memories are stored, right? And you have a face, you have a structure, you have some outlook. So if you have to interact with anybody, that person would be able to see your face, your view. And if he asks some question, your brain will read that question, understand that question, then it will go to your repository, and from that repository you will get the result, and from your mouth you will tell to that person. So the same interaction is going on with MVC. We first interact with the view, we see the view, we provide input to the view, view goes to the controller, controller applies its logic, it gets the data or information from the model, and it comes back to the view. Okay, so this kind of interaction is done with the controller. So controller is an entry point of all the requests made in the web application. So whatever request is made from the browser, from the view, it comes to the controller first, and then controller goes to the model. It might be case that model is required, and it might be case that model is not required. So both kind of possibilities are there. Controller responds to the events, communicate with model, and sets data for the view. Basically, it communicates with the model and the view both. Controller is, you can say, a middle element that interacts with the view. It listens to view and it conveys that message to the model. Model returns the result and it returns back to the view. So controller can be considered as a brain of application. So this is a basic structure of a web application, basically MVC application, you can say. So the browser interacts with the controller using the HTTP request. Controller, if required, interacts with the model. Model interacts with the database. It returns the database to the model. Model returns the information to the controller, and controller passes that information to the view. So this is the basic structure of MVC framework. MVC container, we call it. What is CakePHP now? First of all, CakePHP, it's an open source. It's an MVC framework. It is open source. It is free of cost. You don't have to pay a single penny to have CakePHP. Moreover, a lot of communities are supporting CakePHP. If you get any query or if you have any problem, you can go to those communities, or even CakePHP itself provides you some tutorials or references from where you can get the information. So it follows and implements MVC architecture that we have discussed just a few minutes back. It provides a basic structure for organizing files and database table names. So in CakePHP, we follow a convention. The convention is basically related to file names. What should be the file names? So based on that, if we follow that convention, we will get a lot of functionalities already provided by CakePHP. Other available frameworks are Zen framework, CodeIgniter, and Laravel, etc. So a lot of MVC frameworks are there. You can choose a framework based on your requirement. So why CakePHP? It's open source, and moreover it is flexible assessing. It is flexible enough. It is general public license GPL. You don't have to pay anything for it. It supports MVC architecture. It is very easy to install. You don't have to do much configuration to install CakePHP. It is very easy and faster to learn. It is powerful in build, form, validation using models. So automatically inbuilt validations are there in CakePHP. For example, if you're going to fill up a form, if I'm going to fill up an email address and I don't email address, I provide something else in place of email address. Now it should be validated before saving to the database, because junk data should not go to the database. It is also a security concern for the database if some junk data is going to database. So in order to save that data to, before saving that data to the database, we have to validate it. So all kind of validation, a lot of kind of functionalities, validations are already provided by CakePHP. So CakeBake is a package that can generate easy to use code for CakePHP. Integrated CRUD for database interactions. So already CRUD operations are there for saving, for retrieving the data, for managing, or you can say deleting the data. We can also have use JavaScript HTML AJAX request with the CakePHP, and some of the functionalities are inbuilt. Email, cookie, security, session, request handling. All these components are provided by CakePHP itself. You won't be using core PHP functions for sessions, cookies, and all that are already provided by CakePHP. So these are some of the features of CakePHP. Code generation and scaffolding. Basically, the feature in CakePHP that is called scaffolding. You simply have to use the package CakeBake. There is a proper method to use that. You simply have to run some commands, and a basic CRUD operation, your listing, add record, edit record, and delete would be created automatically based on the table that you have created in your database. Automatically it will create a structure according to that. Next is easy configuration. It is very easy to maintain CakePHP. Database configuration is very easy in CakePHP. Clean MVC implementation. Basically, it is a design pattern and it's a structure that we follow, and we can make manageable code. And out-of-box functionality, it provides database support, form creation, so we don't have to write the core HTML. We will be using CakePHP helper classes, so it provides us the classes that we'll use and our form will be built. We don't have to make our effort to build each and every field. Then community, it is having a strong community. I've already told you that a lot of forums, blogs are there in CakePHP website, and you can access that and do your job. CakePHP for a long time from 2005. So it is being used from 2005. So it is very much reliable and very much strong framework. So till now, any question? We can go ahead. We'll take 3-4 questions and then we'll go ahead. And questions, please ask questions related to CakePHP only. See, Vikrant, you cannot compare any language basically, but there are a lot of differences between PHP and Java. PHP is basically used for web applications only, and Java is for web, desktop, both. And moreover, a lot of features like PHP doesn't support multi-threading, but Java supports. And some features are there that PHP supports, Java doesn't support. Like the efficient PHP is on the web, Java cannot be. And moreover, PHP is an open source. You get it free of cost. You don't have to pay anything. Various versions are there for PHP. You can download any version, use it on the fly. You don't have to configure for PHP. You don't need much configuration for PHP as you need for Java. And moreover, Java is also having a lot of frameworks, but for everything in Java, a lot of things in Java you have to take licensing, but this is not the case with PHP. So these are some of the differences with PHP and Java. Any other question related to MVC or CakePHP? Vikrant, when you will be using PHP, if you have worked with Java, then give a chance to PHP, and then you will automatically get to know the differences. There are a lot of differences in usage as well. PHP can be directly used. As you download it, you can directly access it through the browser. And moreover, it is very efficient one to interact with the HTML itself. See, Shivang, PHP is a language. CakePHP is a structure to write that language, right? For example, basically if you have to see what is the difference between a ground and a road, right? A road is having a boundary, right? So it is properly maintained. A ground cannot be proper. So that simply means it's a structure, it's a boundary by using which structure we can follow something. For example, if you go for some sport, some game for cricket, so there are some rules and regulation being followed for cricket. You cannot play with the wicket, you have to play with the bat only. So there are some of the rules and regulations that you have to follow. There are rules for no balls, there are rules for wides and all. Similarly, PHP is a core language. Like cricket is a core game, but it is having a framework, it is having a rule regulation, it's having a boundary into which you have to play. Similarly, PHP is a framework, it's a core technology. You have to structure it in a way, in a sense that you can maintain it easily. See, Vikrant, HTTP and HTTPS. HTTPS is for secure transfer. Whenever you pass some request, see, if you are using PHP and you have filled up some form and you click on submit, so that request will go to the server first. That server will interpret that request and will return back to the browser. Now that request can be sent in two ways. One, in normal way, the information is passed as it is to the server, and second is secure way. The information is first encoded, then it goes to the server. So HTTPS is basically encoded one, where information is encoded, then it is passed. So it becomes secure. So that, for example, if you see the financial applications or shopping carts, these kind of applications are basically built on HTTPS, means secure, and the port that both use on the system are different. HTTP uses port number 80 and HTTPS uses port number 443. So the way how information is passed to the server and how the result comes back to the browser are different. HTTPS is secure, means encoded data is transferred, but in HTTPS normal is transferred. Yes, CakePHP is also supported in Linux as well. PHP is a web programming language that is language platform independent. It can be used on Mac, it can be used on Windows, it can be used on Linux as well. So normally the current version of PHP is 5. PHP 5 version we are going to use. Now, basically PHP 6 was there, but PHP 6 didn't become that much successful. So we came back to the PHP 5.1. Now PHP 7 is coming to the market, and hope that would be uh, more powerful than CakePHP 5. CakePHP version, we will be using CakePHP 2.5.6. Here it is mentioned, you can see 2.5.6. So CakePHP version 3 is also coming to the market, but that is still under, you can say, the testing. See, CakePHP is a framework. We can't say that it can be used for any Android application or not. It can be used. See, if PHP can be used, whatever जो PHP can do, CakePHP can do. CakePHP is nothing, it's but a structure of PHP. Yes, yes, I'm talking about the data that is transferred from the browser to the server. So in PHP, when you install PHP, PHP interacts with the Apache server. So whatever data is passed between PHP and Apache, if we are using HTTP or HTTPS, here comes the difference. So in order to use HTTPS, for example, if you access some HTTPS website, you have to pass some certificate. You will get some certificate error. You have to get certificate and then you have to click OK, or you have to bypass that. So that is called basically the secure thing, where you have to provide your security certificate in order to access that particular application. Otherwise, some of the functionality would be blocked. Yes, CakePHP can be used with IIS as well, no issues, but some of the functionalities would not be working with the IIS. So best supported framework is Apache with CakePHP or PHP itself. So here are some of the things that we'll be using with. Let's continue with the slides. So here are some of the things that we'll be using with the CakePHP. So CakePHP version 2.5.6 we'll be using, and Apache version would be 2.4, PHP version would be 5.2.8, or it can be higher, it can be any version, but it should be PHP 5 plus. It should not be PHP 4 or PHP 3. And MySQL 4 or higher would work with CakePHP. And we are assuming that we already have PHP in MySQL. So in order to use CakePHP, PHP, Apache, and MySQL must already be installed on your system. If you see, there are two ways are there to install this PHP stuff. Either you can install Apache, MySQL and PHP separately from their respective websites, or you can get a package called XAMPP or WAMP. So this is XAMPP control panel. This is XAMPP package that you can install, and as you install, you will get this control panel. Inside this control panel, you will get Apache and MySQL server links. So Apache and MySQL, there are basically two servers that you have to start before working with PHP. Apache server you will start for interpretation of your PHP code, and MySQL server you will start for your database interaction. So Apache would be interacting with the server that would be processing your request, and MySQL would be the server that will process your database request. So Apache, MySQL and PHP must already be installed if you are going to use with work with CakePHP. So XAMPP, basically we are using 3.2.1, but you can use any version as per your requirement. A lot of versions are there available. This is the latest version, but you can also get the previous version of XAMPP over the website. Yes, Vikrant, we can also use Oracle with PHP. There is not an issue. Now, here is the way to download. Basically, there is on CakePHP website, you will download this 2.5.6.zip file I have downloaded, and this would be my directory, and I will keep that file. See, when you install XAMPP framework on your system, so it will ask you to create a folder called XAMPP, and it is up to you in which directory, in C drive, D drive or E drive, whatever drive you can choose to create the XAMPP directory. And as you install PHP XAMPP, basically you will get this kind of structure, this kind of folder, XAMPP folder you will get in your directory, where there would be various folders. So there would be folder for PHP installation, MySQL installation, and Apache installation, and a lot of other libraries are installed with it. So whatever, if you have to work on a project, you have to keep that project in the document root of your PHP installation. So in XAMPP, there is a folder called htdocs. So htdocs is a folder where you will be keeping your project that you can access through the browser. So in htdocs, here is the CakePHP 2.5.6 backup that I have downloaded, and this is the fresh CakePHP backup. When you will download CakePHP, you will get this structure. I will show you the structure. Just hold on. Let me copy it. So this is my CakePHP framework that I will download from the CakePHP website. When you will download, you will find this kind of structure where there would be folder for app. So app would be the folder where we'll be keeping all our code. Whatever code we will write in app. Lib is basically a core CakePHP code directory where the core functionality of CakePHP framework is written. Then plugins, if you have some extra plugins, you can put here. If you have some vendor libraries, you can keep here. And these are some of the supporting files that support CakePHP structure. So we are not concerned about any of these folders. We are only concerned with app right now. So in app, you will find various folder structures that we'll discuss. So I have downloaded CakePHP. So I'll find my document root. So this is my document root htdocs where I've kept my file. So you can rename this structure, this folder, CakePHP folder, as per your requirement, as per your project name. So I have written the name webinar. Now I have to access this webinar from the browser. So on the browser, I will simply write localhost, and after localhost, I will go to XAMPP. So this is my parent directory. So in XAMPP, basically I will localhost, I will access my directory, that is webinar. So localhost is basically my default host. I have kept my folder inside XAMPP, htdocs and my folder webinar. Now in the browser, I won't access this path. I will be writing localhost / and then my project name, project folder name, and it will directly go to this index file of CakePHP that will print this page. So this is, if this page comes, this simply means that your CakePHP is successfully downloaded and successfully configured with your system. Now there are some of the settings that you have to change. So in app, first it is saying me change the value of security salt in app config core.php. So I will go to webinar app config and core.php. So this is my core.php. So inside this, it is saying me to go to line 846. So this is my security salt. So I have to change this security salt. So this is the default security salt. I will change it. I will add something else in between it. And cipher seed I will also change. I will add some my own string inside it. And simply I will, after saving, I will refresh the browser. And you see those errors are gone now. So your version of PHP is this. Your TMP directory is writable. Your file engine is being used for core programming. So this simply means that your PHP is CakePHP is configured. Now see the another warning. It is your database configuration is not present. So database is still not configured with this CakePHP application. Now we will be configuring the database. So here you will find a file called default database.php default. You will copy it. You will rename it to database.php and you will access it database.php in the same app config folder. And here you will provide your host, that is localhost. In my case, local host would be your URL or your IP address where you are going to work. Then login, my username is root and password is blank. And database, so I have to create a database first that I want to make for my application. So I'll be creating one database. I'll first log into my MySQL server. So inside it, I have created a database called Institute Management. So this is my database that I have created. So I'll simply change my database name here. And that's it. You don't have to do anything. You will simply refresh your screen and you can see CakePHP is able to connect to the database. Now CakePHP can interact with the database and the database name would be institute_management. So see how simple it is to work with, basically configure the CakePHP or install the CakePHP thing. See, definitely you will have to, Anita, you have to create your database. Basically, if you are not going to have any database, then even then you can use CakePHP, but there is no use of using such framework if there is no database. You can write your simple HTML, static HTML programming you can do. But definitely there would be some interaction. Either it can be database or it can be file, but it should be there if you are going to build a dynamic application. Then we will start the Apache and MySQL server that we have already started. Anita, DB is basically database. Database means you can save your information. Basically, database is to save information. We won't be taking database in much detail, but I will explain you. See, multiple databases cannot interact all together. At a time, only single database can interact. So tables, these are tables. For example, courses, or you can say users. So this is a table where I'm having various fields, like a user is having username, password, and email address. So I'll be creating a table for it, and I will be saving my data here. So these data can be saved permanently and can be accessed through the browser using CakePHP. So these are the warnings that we have already resolved. So this is the structure of CakePHP. App is the main folder where we'll be doing our development. Basically, main working directory for CakePHP would be app. So it contains all the application code, model, view, and controller. So model, view, and controller all would be written in the app folder. It also contains the public webroot directory where we'll be keeping our images, JavaScript, style sheets, and lot of things. And second folder is lib. If you just remember, Here inside our CakePHP setup, we saw 4 folders: app, lib, plugins, vendors. So app is basically a folder that keeps all the data that we'll be writing. Lib contains the PHP root directories, or you can say PHP core directories that are written basically to interact with the application. Do not modify any file in this directory. You don't need to modify this lib directory because this is CakePHP library. This is CakePHP root code, core code that you don't need to change. For example, if some robot is working, so there is some programming written behind that robot. So you don't need to change that programming, otherwise that robot might might malfunction. Then plugins, it is by default empty, and it can contain some plugin libraries. If you create or you get downloaded, you can keep here and you can access them. So you can in your core programming, simple programming, you can write any program, any file anywhere. You can keep any file anywhere. But if you are going to use a CakePHP or MVC framework, you have to make a structure. Then vendors, empty by default, it can contain third-party libraries. Next, we'll see a bit of stuff that we can build with CakePHP. So user management system is a kind of application that we can try out with CakePHP, and it would be simple CRUD operation: create, read, update, and delete. Create a database. So we have created a database already, and my database name is institute_management. So I've also created some tables. So courses table is there, that is having course ID, course name, duration, course type, and course fees. Then institute table would be having some fields. Then students table would be having some fields, and then users table would be having some fields. So this is my small database that I've created to basically represent an application. So now we will simply see this application building, that how we'll be building. Basically in CakePHP, there is a folder called app. So inside app, there is a folder called controller, model, and view. Now if I have to see, first of all, we will create a table in our database. So in CakePHP, we'll start from the bottom. We will first create the table in the database. For example, I have created a table with the name students. So if you are going to work with CakePHP, we'll be following some convention. So convention is that you have to keep your table names in the database as plural. They would be plural, they won't be singular. It won't be student, it would be students. It would be users, it would be institutes. It won't be user, it would be users. So this is a convention that you should follow. This is not a restriction. You can change that convention, but if you want to utilize the full functionality of CakePHP, then you should follow this convention. So be keeping your table names as users, students, institutes, courses, like that. So once you have created a table, you will create a corresponding model for that. See, I have created one table called students. Now for the same, I'll be building one model. For example, if you have created a table called user, so you will be creating a model called user. It would be singular. So table name would be plural, but model name would be singular, and it would be having the same name as of the table. Only difference would be it would be singular of your table name. If table name is students, your model name would be student.php. If table name is users, your model name would be user.php. So inside your model, so we will give a name to the model, and then that name would be same as of the model. And the class name that we will be using inside the model would be same as of the table name. Singular of Akash. It is not mandatory, it is not compulsory to use this convention, but if you want to use the full functionality of CakePHP, full feature set of CakePHP, you should follow that. Okay. For example, if you have to go from one place to another place, you are going through a highway, then you have to follow the rules of that highway in order to reach that place. Only then you will be able to reach safely to that place, right? Similarly, it is good to have. If you follow this convention, it is good to have. Then I won't be going into much detail for this validation. Basically, you can create your validation as well for various fields. So you will create, so variable name here, dollar name, dollar primary key, dollar validate, it would be same. It won't change. Public validate equal to array you will create. For example, I'm having a field username and password, and I'll be creating some validation rule. No, for example, for my username, I have created no empty rule. For password, I have created no empty rule and minimum length rule. And for email ID, I have created email ID rule. Means proper email format should be there. So this is my model I will create. Then after I have created my model, I will create my controller. So I will see if table name is users, your model name would be user.php, but your controller name would be same as of the table users controller. It would be plural as the table is. So the class name would be users controller, whatever is the name of the file itself. And inside that, you will create functions. So these are the functions, or you can say these are the actions that can be accessed from the browser. For example, if I'm creating a function called my test and I'm writing print, this is my first CakePHP function. Now this would act as my action, simply means that I can access this function through the browser now. On the browser, what I will be doing, I will be writing my IP or the server address, then your project folder, and then your controller, that is users. Controller name is users controller, but you won't be writing here users controller, you will be simply writing users, and then the function name that you have created, that is my test. So this way, now see, it is saying that create the class below in the file. Why it is saying this thing? Okay, fine. It is not there, so we'll be using and users slash my test. Okay, now I will write users slash my test. See here, this is my first CakePHP function. You got the message printed. So this way you can access any of the function through the browser. So this is the basic convention. We will create a model with the singular name of the table, and we will create a controller with the plural same name of the table. Inside that, you will create your function. Now you will be able to access that function from the browser. You will write your path, your project path, your controller name, and then your action name. That's it. And you will be able to print whatever is written in the action or function. And third thing you can build is the view. You can create your view as well. So what would be the convention for the view? So for the view, you will go to the view folder. So the folder with the same name as of the controller or table, you will create. For example, I have created here folder called users. Inside users, you will create a file for each function that you want to access from the browser. For example, my function name is my test. So I will create a file here with my test.ctp. CTP means CakePHP template. So in a controller, the function name you have written. So if you have to create the view for this controller, this basically function, you will go to app, view. Inside view, you will create a folder name as of the same of controller users. Inside that, you will create a file of the same name as of the function. So I have created my test.ctp. So whatever message you have written here, you can write in your basically view file as well, or you can create some HTML code if you want to create. For example, I write now. If you refresh it, you can see this is my first CakePHP application. This is the bold text. It is printed. So normally we won't write any presentation code on our controller. We will be basically writing the logic, and that logic would pass the data to the view, and view will be displaying that data. So here you can see this is my first CakePHP function. This is the bold text is being displayed. Yes, CakeBake, if you are using CakeBake, it will automatically create this CRUD structure. Now I will show you one example of how you can create an application. So I have created a small application. This is basically, you can say, the login screen. I will show you the whole basically application. So inside controller, I have created users controller because I'm going to use users table for this. So I'm using users controller. User table is having some username and password and email address. Now inside user controller, I've written my functions. So I'm not going to go in much detail because you won't understand, rather you will confuse. I will simply show you the application now. This is my login screen from where I will pass my username and password and I will submit. So if to database, you can see username is admin and password is pass123. So here I will write admin and pass123. See, Rizwan, that is, don't get confused. This is my own application. Don't worry. This I downloaded this webinar folder. Basically this is the basic CakePHP, and this is the built application that I'm showing you that how it works. Don't worry if you have to see. I've told you the structure that you will follow. First you will build a table, then in app understand the logic, understand the structure. Don't worry about what files I've created and what I'm showing you. That is simply for your ease to show you some practical thing. Don't worry. So in webinar app, if you have created a table called users, first of all in models, you will create a model, or consider this is your webinar folder. Don't worry. In app, in model, you will create user.php model. So this is your model. Inside model, it would be having this class. So initially you will get this thing only. When you have a model, this would be the structure of a model, where class name would be same as of the model file name, and it will extend app model, and app model is basically the parent class of CakePHP core feature. You don't have to change that class. So inside that you will be writing your own model statements, like name of your model you will assign, primary key. See, normally what CakePHP is that the primary key of any of your table should be ID. It should be named ID, but if it is not ID, you have to define that what primary key name you would be keeping. So I have taken user underscore ID. So I have to define it here. Otherwise, see, we don't have to write any query in CakePHP. You simply have to define the relationship. It automatically writes the queries. So as it is writing automatically, we have to follow the convention so the query is written in a right manner. If you are taking the ID as user underscore ID and CakePHP assuming that ID name should be ID, so it would give you an error that no primary key with the name ID exists in the database. So in order to avoid that error, you have to define that what would be your primary key name in the model itself. Okay, so this is how you will build your model. Then you will go ahead with your controller. So in controller, this would be your basic controller, right? So inside users controller, it would extend controller, that is the parent CakePHP library class. So inside user controller, you will build your function, or you can say action. Now I have created my test. Now if I have to display some form on my test, So here you won't be writing like, here you won't be writing your HTML like this. This is the worst programming thing if you are doing like this, like you are writing form and then you will be creating your tables. So this is the worst way of programming. You won't be writing any HTML code in your controller. So whatever you have to write, you will be writing in the view. So if I have created a function called myTest, now for myTest, basically for myTest, I don't want to write any HTML code here. So what I will do, I have to create a view that will be representing this myTest function. So I will go to my app and view. Inside view, in order to create a view for this function, for users controller class, I will create a folder called users. Inside that, I will create a file of the same name as of the function. So I've created mytest.php. Now inside this function, you will write your HTML and it would automatically be linked to this mytest function or action in your controller. You don't have to specify that this view should be used for this function. It is automatically connected. So see, you are simply following the convention of CakePHP and it is doing the job itself. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. So this is the basic logic, basic structure, basic convention that you have to follow. So using this structure, I have created an application. I cannot build the whole application in front of you because that is basically very time consuming and we are bounded with the time. So I will simply show you that how I have built and how that is interacting. See, I have created a folder, basically you can say index file, and for this index I have created users index.ctp. So in my index.ctp, and you can say so I've created a structure called login.ctp. Now here I'm trying to access index basically module 10 users and index. So it is, this is my index folder basically. So I cannot show you, this is guest page basically. I won't explain this what this guest means. So here you can see it is written welcome guest. This is one way to access my page, but another way is that I have created one login.ctp. So you can see this is my login.ctp, and for that I have created a login controller. So login controller is there. So inside login controller, I have written a login function that would be basically passing data to the view that is my login screen. So for that, this login folder, I have created app view login. I've created a folder called login, and inside login I have created login.ctp. So in that login.ctp I have written my see my HTML I have written in login.ctp, not in my controller. And this is automatically connected to this login function. So now if I'm accessing my username and password screen, I write my username and password and click on submit. It will go to my home page, and here you can see it is saying welcome admin. What is my username and giving me a logout link. After logging in, I'm able to see user, institute, student and courses links that I can access. So I'll be clicking on users. Here you can see this is the list of users. So for this list of users, what I'm doing, here you can see users. So it is going to users. So index is the basically default view. So if you don't provide index basically any view name in the URL, it will automatically consider the index view, or you can say the index function of your controller. So it is going to users index. So this is my index function. Here, see here, I am going to fetch the data from table now because I have to display the listing of users. So what I will do, I will simply use the function CakePHP function. This user is your model name and find function is the CakePHP function. So you will be using this model name, find, and all. All means all records I have to fetch, and you will save this data into a variable, and that variable you can pass to your view by simply writing this set your variable name, whatever this is your user defined. You can keep any name with, and your record array that you got from the database. So it is fetching all the records from the database. If you want to see here, I have simply written this user find all, and internally it is creating this query: select user ID, username, password, email from institute management dot users as user where 1 is equal to 1, which simply means I have to fetch all the records from the users table. So I have fetched all the records. So now I will open my index file for my this basically action index section. I have created an index.ctp in my app view users and index.ctp. So here what I will do, I will create a table. Now this student record is available to my view with a $. So PHP variable is written with $, so it is available to the view with student record. If I change this name, don't confuse with these two names. If I write stu rec only, so now this stu rec would be present in your view with $stu rec. Okay, so you have to append $, in front of your variable name that you are getting from your controller. So what I will do now, this stu-rec basically contains the array of records that I'm fetching from the database. You can print that and you can see what I mean. So this is the array that I'm getting from the database now. This is the record. In database you can see there is a single record with username, admin, password, pass123 and email. So now this is the record that I'm fetching from the database, and what I'm doing, I'm passing this record, or you can say all records, to the index file. And this index, what this index file is doing, it is looping through it. It is accessing the values from this array and printing it on the screen. So this screen we got. So this is the screen we got. This is the R created HTML that we have created in the view. Now I have given here the link for edit, delete and add new user. If you want to add new user, you'll click on add new user. Now see, it is going to user details. Now I will create one more method in my controller, user details, and similarly I will create a view for it in view users and user details.ctp, where I will create my add form, and this add form would be created by using CakePHP method. CakePHP basically form class. You don't write core HTML. You will be using CakePHP form method to create your classes, create your variable, basically fields, and it will create a field basically structure like this: username, password and email. So I have taken username, password and email and a submit button. So it is showing me now I can add new user to it. For example, I use a user Mohit test123 I keep, and email address abc.com we can keep, and I click on user saved successfully. So what this internally doing, see, in this folder, basically when we have clicked on submit, the control, this is the view, this user details.ctp is the view. When I click on submit button, the control again goes to the controller, and controller here checks if this request is post, means that I submitted from the browser, from the form. Then what it will do, it will first validate that data. This validate function is created in this model. So validate variable is created. It will validate according to this validation stuff, and if it passes the validation, we will use this user save method of CakePHP and will pass the request data or the form data, and simply it will save that data to the database, and it will flash a message: user data saved successfully. So user data saved successfully. From here we can go back to the list, and here you can see I created a new user, Mohit@abc.com. If you want to edit it, you will simply click on this, and the same user details view will be used, same view will be used. The only difference would be you will be passing your ID, user ID in the query string. So if you pass the value in the query string, it will automatically fill your fields from the database, and you will simply change it, click on submit. The same method would be called, same. This only difference would be if ID is provided, then it will update. If ID is not provided, then it will add. Now it is updated, and if you go back to the list, you can see email ID is updated. So this way you can update. Now one more thing, I want to delete. So I will create a delete action. Inside delete, I will use this model name and delete, and will pass the user ID that you want to delete after the form has submitted. So for the same, I will be creating one delete.ctp in my app view users folder. So this would contain alert message that if you want to delete this record. So this is the delete view that is confirming, yeah, do you want to delete user ID 3? So I have given a button confirm delete, this confirm delete button, and after confirming, it is deleting the record. And when I go back to my home page, you can see the record is deleted. So this is how we build applications in CakePHP. This was a small basic, you can say, CakePHP application, because we are bounded to the time, so we cannot go through everything. So I've just explained you that how easy it is to build application in CakePHP. So if there is any query, you can go ahead now, because we have finished our slides for now, and you can just ask your questions now. Yes, Anita, that is not an issue. You can build CMS with a CakePHP. CakePHP is a framework. See, try to understand. CakePHP is a framework. It is just a structure, how you have to structure your code. It provides you some library functions internally. You simply use that functions. You don't have to write everything of your own. For example, using the form functionality, using email functionality, you simply using the same. See, if you are using the core PHP, then in order to save your data to the database, you have to create your own PHP functions, and that functions will interact with the database, and that will be running the queries, and those queries will be saving the data to the database, and then control will coming back to your controller, so to your file. So this is the basic core PHP functionality if you have to save something to the database. But if you are using CakePHP, you will simply use CakePHP functions. For example, I don't write any query, I didn't write anything, I simply wrote this save and my data. That's it. It automatically saves. This is the CakePHP functionality that it is automatically providing. If I have to fetch something, I don't have to write select star from something. I'll simply do this, your model name, find function, and pass your all or the condition that you want to pass. It will fetch the data according to that. So it is simply a structure that how you should move ahead. Any other question? See, Drupal is basically, it's not a framework. See, it's a, you can say CMS. It's not a framework. There is difference between a CMS and a framework. Basically, CMS is more restricted. It is, you can say, it provides lot of bounded functionalities you have to use. But in framework, you can use the provided features, or you can skip that. That is up to you. This is the difference. Anybody else having any question? So we can still spend 10-15 minutes if you need for the question session. And if you want to see repeat something, we can repeat as well. We still have 10-15 minutes. So what kind of ORM Ritesh looking to integrate? any third-party application or anything you want to integrate with CakePHP. So you will find folders, plugins, and vendors where you can provide your outside third-party libraries. In app itself, you will find plugin folder, see, and vendor folder. So you can keep any third-party library inside these folders, and from your controller you can access that, and you can do any kind of integration with any kind of library. It's a third-party library or it's CakePHP library. Even CakePHP itself provides lot of third-party libraries. If you just go to CakePHP website, you will be able to see lot of third-party vendor libraries or some ORM basically libraries it provides. You can access, simply put that into your vendors or your basically plugins based on what it is. It is a plugin or it's a vendor or it's a library, and you can access that using the CakePHP structure. So you are not restricted to use only CakePHP library, core library. You can use any third-party library. You can keep that in vendors, plugins, and use as per your requirement. And moreover, if there is some library that is going to support your controller, so inside app controller there is a folder called component. For example, I want to create an email component that will be used for my controllers. So I'll be keeping that class in this component folder, and I'll be using that. And similarly, if we have some class to be used with your view, with your HTML part, then in your view there is a folder called elements. You'll be creating there. For example, you want to have some advertisement you want to show on every page. So you'll be creating an element, and you will be simply using that element with the CakePHP structure, this element and your element name, and you can use in any page, in any controller, any view you can use it. There is no restriction. So this way you can integrate any outside or third-party functionality with CakePHP application. Yes, Anita. CakePHP provides a lot of plugins, libraries for email, for uh, you can say payment processing, for you can say database processing, or some kind of string manipulation. So a lot of functionalities, lot of features CakePHP automatically provides that you won't find in this CakePHP folder. You have to go to CakePHP website. You have to get that component or library and place in the respective folder where it is saying. It will basically CakePHP website. If you have chosen some plugin, it will tell you the whole procedure that where to keep this plugin and how to use it. So you don't have to worry about that. If you are using the CakePHP built-in functionality, you will be getting the whole support for that. Full support you will get from the CakePHP website, that where to keep it and how to use it. I can show you a component that I've created. So, oh, sorry, not in this. No, we have not created any component. For example, I can give an example of a component. If you are going to do some mathematical calculations, you have to create 4 functions: add, delete, sorry, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So these 4 functions you can create in a component. That would be a class, and you can use that class inside your controller, or any controller. In any controller you can use that. You don't have to rewrite the code, or you don't have to. This simply means that it increases the reusability. So any other question? Yeah, Shrikant, Shivang, Sumit, Tushar, Harmeet, Kanat, Pradeep. Anybody having any question? Raghavendra. Yes, Anita. This session that we went through, this was a small introduction of CakePHP. If you, there is a course in Edureka that will provide you extensively, it will provide you information on first of all PHP, how we start with PHP, and what are the various features of PHP. Then it will go through the CakePHP in detail. There we will be building controller from the scratch, model from the scratch, views from the scratch, libraries from the scratch, components from the scratch. So everything we will be doing hands-on. So in practical session, you will see everything hands-on. I will be building in front of you. Right now we don't have much time, so I just show you the files. Otherwise, I will be building all the files in the scratch if this is a complete CakePHP Edureka session. So if you have to learn CakePHP, if you have to learn PHP, this is the best way to learn, because here you will see it would be an interactive session where you can write down your questions, or even required, I can unmute you and you can ask your question, or I'll be doing practical in front of you and you can ask at any moment. MVC 4. What do you mean by MVC 4, Pradeep? See, MVC base session is, see, MVC, what MVC is basically a design pattern. So design pattern always having a same structure. The structure is always same, only some of the arrangements are different. For example, if you are going to work with Zen framework, the folder structure might be different. The folder naming convention might be different, but internally it will be creating model, view, and controller for sure. Yes, there are a lot of different frameworks in PHP, in MVC. Zen framework, Code Igniter, Laravel, and CakePHP itself, YII, lot of frameworks are there. Each would be for sure having model, view, and controller. REST folder structure can be different, but definitely there would be a model, there would be a controller, and then would be a view for a single module. The syntax might be different for each framework, but the core functionality would be core pattern, design pattern would be same, that is MVC, model, view, and controller. So if you learn CakePHP, if you learn a single MVC framework, you can easily use any other MVC framework by simple configuration or using some steps that they will provide, because you will understand the basic MVC, that what is MVC, how it is being used. For example, if I know driving, I can drive a car, then it doesn't matter whether it's a Honda car or it's a Toyota car, what car it is. The controls in the cars might be different. For example, in one car, indicator might be on right side, but another car indicator might be on left side. But indicator would be there for sure. Okay. So the similar way, if you know one MVC framework, you can work with any MVC framework. Only the structure, only the placement would differ. That's it. Normally for clients who want personal websites, we can just use WordPress. So why learn frameworks? I mean, what kind of clients? See, WordPress, yes, you can go ahead with WordPress, but if you have to work on large projects, big projects, then I think that the stuff like WordPress won't be that much helpful. So in that case, for example, you have to make more customization. You have to do more customization. You have to provide some client-specific classes or client-specific libraries or client-specific functionalities. So in that case, you should go with some MVC framework that is more flexible, more loosely coupled. The CMS or WordPress are basically a bit tightly coupled, but CakePHP frameworks like CakePHP or Zend are a bit loosely coupled. You can modify as per your requirement, and there is no restriction whether you use MVC structure or not. You can write your core coding as well, but it's always better to use the convention, follow the conventions. So, any other question? Anybody else? No. See, this SQL Yog is not a standard database. It's a, you can say, a software that I purchased. Basically, it's a purchase software. You can use, see, if you install XAMPP, by default you will be getting PHP So by default, when you install XAMPP, you will be getting this PHP The same thing you can do here. This is, see here, my database name, Institute Management. Inside, I can see my tables, courses, institutes. So you can see the table structure here. So you can see the structure, you can see the data. So there is no restriction what application you are using to access the database. This is the PHP the default application that you will get when you will install XAMPP. XAMPP is a package basically that basically groups PHP, Apache and MySQL. You don't have to install them separately. But if you are going to work on a shared server, this is normally for local server, this XAMPP package. But if you are going to work on some server, live server or some shared server, you should install PHP, MySQL and Apache separately. But that thing we can only explain in the complete PHP session, PHP MySQL MVC session. So Edureka provides a complete PHP MySQL and CakePHP session in which we will learn everything related to creating PHP connections, creating interaction with the MySQL server, how we can interact with MySQL server, and how we can create the CakePHP files from the scratch. It would be more detailed because we have limited time today, so we cannot cover everything in this time period. So we are taking it short. I'm just giving the basic introduction of how Edureka works, what is the culture of Edureka, how it provides training. It is basically, you can say, a model training that we can work, how we give trainings, how you people can interact with the instructor, and how you can go ahead with your training. And you will be provided some certification as well from the Edureka that you can link with your LinkedIn profile and get more, you can say, likes from companies. You have more better job opportunities. Yeah, thanks Pradeep, thanks a lot. I hope everybody enjoyed this session as I do. So, and also hope we will meet again in a full CakePHP session with Edureka. Yeah, thanks Akash. So if there is no other question, I'm going to end up the session and hope that we'll meet again for full session. So thanks everybody. I'm logging out. Thanks. Bye for your time. I hope to meet you soon. Yeah, thank you.